Good evening. My name is Thuan, and now I will represent Chapter 4 and Chapter 5 for my presentation. First, we will talk about Chapter 4, Standards-Based Assessments. In this chapter, we need to, the learners need to understand the crucial role of standards in educational instruction and assessment, especially in standardized settings. Next, examine a set of standards for a specified age level and context, and apply them to contexts of your own. Next, analyze the purpose, advantages, and disadvantages of standard-based assessments. And they need to apply. They were able to apply principles of standardization to the construction of teachers-based standards, and they can appreciate the two-edged sword of large-scale standards-based setting is social, political, and ideological consequences. And the last one, the learner needs to be prepared to take action in your own teaching and assessing to assure fairness and openness for your students. First, let's discover the role of standards in standardized tests. A standardized test presupposes certain standards, objectives, or performance levels, now better known as standards, and also known as benchmarks that are held constant across one form of a test to another. The standards that underlie standardized tests are usually a set of carefully defined competencies that apply to a course, a curriculum, a year-long program, or even multiple year objectives. Standards-based assessment refers to procedures that are specifically designed to test such competencies. The construction of such standards makes possible a concordance between standardized test specifications and the goals and objectives of educational programs. By carefully examining exceeding curricular goals, conducting needs assessments among students, and designing appropriate assessment of those standards, educators have sought to pinpoint designed educational outcomes for students. The intent is for these standards to serve as guidelines for curriculum assessments and instructional design that corresponds to what students should know and be able to do as they progress through schools, thus enhancing the teacher's knowledge of student achievements and goals. Next, we will have some example relating to many countries have implemented standards-based education. Let's begin with China. The State of Education Commission in Beijing has set standards for the entire country and for all levels of the school system. In England, standard settings was considered the responsibility of local schools. In 1988, the Education Reform Act mandated and outlined the process for establishing a national curriculum. Let's move to Europe. The formulation of a set of standards known as the Common European Framework of Reference, called CEFR for languages, Council of Europe 2001. Today, CEFR policy rules are well established in European education at all levels. Administrators, course designers, teachers, and examining bodies are called on to reflect on their current practice and to ensure they meet the needs of the learners. In the United States, ESL, also known as English for speakers of other languages. English Language Learners ELLS, and English Language Development ELD have become household terms for elementary and secondary school teachers. Next, let's see the goals match with the standards. If the goal is to use English to communicate in social settings, so the standards will be: first, students will use English to participate in social interaction. Next, students will interact in through and with spoken and written English for personal expression and enjoyment. And last, students will use learning strategies to extend their communicative competence. If the goals is to use English in socially and culturally appropriate ways, so the standard will be: first, students will use appropriate language variety, register, and gender according to audience and purpose. Students will use non-verbal communication appropriate to audience, purpose, and setting. Students will use appropriate learning strategies to extend their social, linguistic, and social cultural competence. So, the design English language standards, the process of designing and conducting appropriate periodic reviews of learning language standards involve dozens of curriculum and assessment specialists, teachers, and researchers. In creating such benchmark for accountability standards, designers have a responsibility to carry on a comprehensive study of a number of domains. A thorough analysis of the means available to assess students' attainment of their standards. Standard-based assessment. As standard-based education became more accepted in the 1990s, many educational systems around the world found that standardized tests of past decades were not in line with the new developed standards. This was the impetus to begin the interactive process, not only to develop standards, but also to create standards-based assessments. In California, USA, so they have ELP English Language Proficiency, ELPAC English Language Proficiency Assessment for Cali. And let's figure it out by looking at the proficiency level descriptors. So if the mode we have some mode of communications, and with each mode we have each ELD proficiency level continuum. For example, um, if the mode of communication is collaborative, so the ELD proficiency level continuum will be express basic personal and safety needs and respond to questions on social and academic topics with gestures and words or short phrases. Next is use basic social conventions to participate in conversations. That is the early stage of emerging level. So let's move to assets from the emerging level. Students are able to perform the following tasks, such as express basic personal and safety needs, and social and academic topics with phrase and short sentences. Next is participate in simple face-to-face conversation with peers and others. So that is some example relating to mode of communication collaboration, and we can keep going with the mode of communication. Level 2 interpretive, and level 3 productive. Next, let's move to teacher standards. In addition to the movement to create standards for learning, an equally strong movement had emerged to design standards for teaching. Cloud 2001 noted that a student performance depends on the quality of the instructional program provided, which depends on the quality of the professional development of teachers. And Fenner and Kuhlman 2012 emphasize the importance of teacher standards in 5 domains. 1. Language. 2. Culture. 3. Instruction. 4. Assessment. And finally, professionalism. Let's move to consequences of standards-based assessment or standardized testing. Standard-based assessment are not without their share of problems. Other standards are implemented to improve education. A growing body of research has found a number of unintended or negative consequences of standards-based assessments. Some studies have found that standard-based tests can narrow the curriculum, pushing instruction toward lower order rather than higher order cognitive skills. One of the strongest arguments against standard-based assessment is the issue of accountability. That is, test results are used to hold school districts accountable for raising student academic achievement and identifying schools in need of improvement. Another major challenge in standard-based education is the close link to the standardized testing industry that we are already familiar with. Some of the consequences are positive. Some researchers argue that both test developers and test users must seek to create fair and unbiased tests to use tests in a way that is fair for all testers. Bias, they say, can come in many forms: language, culture, race, gender, and learning styles. And hello again. So now we will move to chapter 5, standardized testings. In this chapter, after learning, learners will be able to first appreciate the link between standardized-based assessment and standardized testing. Second, apply their understanding of the pros and cons of standardized testing to evaluate and adopt standardized tests on their own. Third, develop a standardized test, including designing test specifications and items, and defining scoring criteria. Fourth, analyze the steps taken to perform a construct validation of a standardized test. And last one, the learners can examine constructs, underlie various standardized language proficiency tests. First, let's understand more about characteristics of a standardized test. A good standardized test is a product of a thorough process of empirical research and development that may extend beyond simply establishing standards or benchmarks. Standardization can also mean the use of systematic procedures for administration and scoring. Further, many standardized tests, especially large-scale tests, are non-referenced, the goal of which is to place test takers on a continuum across a range of scores and to differentiate test takers by their relative rankings. So the standard characteristic of a standardized test will have standards-based product of research and development, systematic scoring, and administration procedures. The last one, reference to norms. Many people are under the incorrect impression that all standardized tests consist of items that have predetermined responses presented in a multiple choice format. A multiple choice format provides the test producer with an objective means for determining correct and incorrect responses, and therefore is the preferred mode for the large-scale tests. However, standards are equally involved in many human score tests of oral production and writing, such as the speaking section of IELTS and the writing section of the TOEFL. Next, we need to understand more about pros and cons of standardized tests. The pros will be readily available product, easily administered to large group, streamlined scoring and reporting procedure, a previously validated product. But the pros will be possibly inappropriate use of such tests. Potential test biases. Indirect testing may not elicit a good sample of performance. Multiple choice formats have the appearance of authority. So we will have some questions to consider, for example, how the standardized test developed, where do the task and item come from, how are they evaluated, who set norms and cut-off limits, security and confidentiality are an issue, cultural and racial bias, an issue in test development. So next, let's move to some steps to design a standardized test. Step 1, determine the purpose and objectives of the test. Step 2, design test specifications. Step 3, design, select, and arrange testers. Step 4, make appropriate evaluation of different kinds of items. Step 5, specify scoring procedures and reporting formats. And step 6, perform ongoing construct validation studies. So that is 6 steps of a standardized test. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you for your listening. Goodbye.